Hello, Sean. My name is Dr. Jones, and I'm going to be doing your intake interview today. So, I'm told that you're obsessed with movies from the early 2000s, and it's been affecting your relationships with your friends.
Uh, I'm not sure that obsession is the right word. I just think that they're
Okay, interesting. So, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. These movies, are they in the room with us right now?
yes. I I have the files on my laptop.
On your laptop? And how did you acquire these files on your laptop?
I I downloaded them.
Legally?
Well, you see, I don't really have a way of editing the files down at all without a copy, and my laptop doesn't have a disk drive, so
Your obsession has driven you to theft. Ah, note of that.
again, I don't feel that obsession is the right
So, what was the last film that you watched?
Gothika. It's actually really good. It has Halle Berry and Robert Downey Jr. and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, this one's gonna be heavy. It's got scary imagery, references to suicide, rape, serial murdering, gaslighting, and I'm probably gonna make some sexualized jokes towards Halle Berry and Penelope Cruz. I absolutely get why people might not want to watch a video or a movie about these subjects. So, if that's you, skip this one. Maybe one day I'll review a movie that doesn't have such harsh subject matter. But today is not that day. This review is going to contain spoilers for Gothika. I really like this movie, so I suggest that you watch it. But I'm also going to try something new. I'm going to give a mini synopsis with as few spoilers as possible to try and pique your interest in the movie, and then you can check it out and come back to my full review if you want it. Halle Berry plays Miranda Gray, a psychologist and an atheist. She interviews a patient played by Penelope Cruz named Chloe, who was sexually assaulted by her father and who she later murdered.
It's the only way to help him stop.
Stop what?
Stop fucking me!
And is claiming to be continuously raped by the devil in her cell.
I know what you're thinking. You think I'm talking about my stepfather.
Miranda doesn't take this claim seriously because the devil doesn't exist to her.
Because you don't believe in the devil. You're not listening.
I am listening, Chloe.
You're not listening with your heart. Just your brain. You have no idea how it feels not to be trusted. You can't trust someone who thinks you're crazy.
Then she goes home. On the way there, she almost hits a girl who's just standing in the middle of the road, ends up wrecking her car, and that's unfortunate. When she checks on the girl, she screams, and Miranda wakes up in the hospital that she works at, but as a patient. And now she'll know what that feels like. She is being accused of killing her husband, but has no memory of the events. And that's basically like the first 25-ish minutes of the movie. If that sounds interesting to you, I suggest checking it out. If you want to know what my thoughts on the movie are after you check it out, just come back and I'll have the rest of the video waiting for you. But from here, I'm going to spoil the whole movie. So all of that happens basically how I describe it, but I did skip over a few details. Miranda, played by Halle Berry, is married to the head of the hospital slash prison that she works for. She's also apparently very good at her job, despite not taking claims of sexual assault seriously and realizing that some patients will be telling the truth but still not have a great concept of reality at the same time. Seriously. If someone claims to be sexually assaulted, check their fucking story. Jesus. We also establish that there is a pool in the hospital/prison, and that Halle can swim very well. And that the prison hospital has garbage fucking electrical tie-ins that go out every time that there is a storm. It occurs to me that if Halle had just kept her storm powers, then she could just blow all of this rain and thunder away, and the place would still have power. Reminder, always keep your superpowers from other movies that you're in, because that's how movies work. Also, the girl that almost got Miranda killed touched her face, and then both of them were engulfed into flame before Miranda wakes up in the hospital. So, she's locked up and suspected of murdering her husband, but she has no memory of this. Her former colleague, Dr. Peter Graham, played by Robert Downey Jr., is treating her, which seems like a massive ethical issue, but so does putting her in her former workplace. But fine, whatever. This movie is good enough for me to ignore that, for the most part. No one believes her story that she doesn't remember. Literally, no one believes that she didn't murder her husband. They will not listen to her side of the story at all, which is the theme of the movie. Spoilers for later in the video. Chloe reveals this in the first, 4 minutes of the movie.
You can't trust someone who thinks you're crazy.
So, now they're, locked up together, and Chloe figures it would be, a totally great time to, bond and, have some girl time together. Oh my god. It is, after all, hot girl summer. Dr. Gray will not have any of this, and she tries to further isolate herself, which is fair. Which makes some amount of sense for a prison, but the framing of the movie didn't make it, really all that clear, at least to me, whether or not it was an asylum or a prison. And I feel like if you're keeping criminally insane people together, the body image issues and the other things that just go with being criminally insane probably makes communal showers a bad plan. But fine, whatever. Anyway, she starts seeing the girl from the night of the accident in the shower, and she greets her like an old friend by slashing her with a knife. This freaks the rest of the women out, and they piece the fuck out of there, which is fair. The staff all presume that she carved the phrase "not alone" into her own arm, despite no weapon being found at the scene. A little bit later, they have the sheriff, who is her husband's best friend, Sheriff Ryan, interview her. She gets upset and reveals the phrase "not alone" carved into her arm, still not sure what it means. And Dr. Graham ends the interview way after it should have ended. Presumably he was trying to come up with some Stark-esque quip to end it on, but because he's not being written by Joss Whedon, he can't.
Textbook narcissism. Agreed?
After she freaks out due to the whole being accused of murder and everyone thinking she's crazy, drama queen, she's sedated.
I wanna be sedated.
In her drugged state, she starts to remember a little bit more from the night that her husband was murdered. She gets flashes of scenes of blood and her husband trying to get away and her picking up an axe, and then the young woman who caused the accident and later attacked her. Her memories are all in this artsy third-person style, so she obviously can't be the murderer, because that's how that works. Miranda asks to see Dr. Phil Parsons, played by Bernard Hill, now that she remembers the woman and is convinced that she's the murderer. Dr. Graham is there as well, presumably to supervise. They don't believe her, especially after she finds a photo of the woman who attacked her in Parsons' office. Apparently it's his daughter Rachel, played by Kathleen Mackey, who died of an apparent suicide a couple of years earlier. So, she's seeing ghosts. You know, my friends think that I have this obsession with ghosts, and I guess this is like the third ghost movie that I'm reviewing. Maybe I do secretly want to fuck ghosts. A shame that they don't exist. Much like my girlfriend. Oh. Oh no. She's been a ghost the whole time. Fuck. Back in her cell with flickering lights. Seriously, what is it with these insane asylums and prisons in fiction with shitty lighting? It's no wonder that no one ever recovers in Arkham, given the fact that there are spooky fucking gargoyles everywhere, and nobody can see anything because it's fucking dark as hell. I can't blame anyone for wanting to escape that hellhole, if for no other reason than to just see architecture that isn't dramatic Victorian goth. Dr. Gray calls out, reminding the audience that she does not believe in ghosts.
I believe in science. I don't believe in the paranormal, and I don't believe in ghosts.
But that if a ghost was there, it'd be totally cool if she could spring her.
But if you are the ghost of Rachel Parsons, and you would let me out of this cell.
And the ghost apparently just agrees to that. Turns the lock and opens the door. Miranda escapes and steals a screwdriver from the maintenance man and uses it to pick a lock. Honestly, if I was the DM, I would have given her disadvantage for using an improvised tool, but I'm not in control of this game this time. She breaks into Dr. Graham's office and plans on stealing his keys, which he has there for some reason, despite not being in the office and it being in the middle of the night. Then the computer boots to life and opens on an article talking about Rachel's death. A security feed pops up and Rachel is standing in the middle of the hallway being all spoopy with the lights going on and off, and it's all good fun. Apparently that's the solitary wing where they're keeping Chloe because she's been a danger to herself and others. Instead of escaping, she goes down to check in on Chloe, and that's when she confirms Chloe's story about being raped in her cell. And the flames that Chloe was talking about were from a tattoo called the Anima Sola, apparently, which is basically just a prostrated woman bound and being extra hot because of all of the fire. She rushes out and is caught by some of the staff and insists that go and check in on Chloe, but no one does. She tries to convince Dr. Graham to look into it and mentions the tattoo, but he thinks that she's cracked entirely, which is fair, but at the same time, it would be really easy to just check. Miranda meets with Chloe and apologizes for not believing her, and they hug.
I'm sorry I didn't believe you.
Dr. Gray asks Chloe if she knows who is doing this to her.
I need you to tell me who did this to you.
But Chloe just insists that it's still the devil.
He can have my body, but he will never have my soul.
And ominously tells her that she's next.
He said you're next.
But for her escape attempt, she wins a more secured cell. Yay! On another note, those glass cells sure do look cool, but they're a pretty big privacy issue. I'm no prison ethicist, mostly because I think that prisons are unethical in their current state, and that disqualifies me automatically, apparently. In her new cell, we get one of the best executed jump scares I have ever seen. It was subtle, but still very creepy. Well done, movie. Well done. And now, let's get ready to rumble! 2 girls will enter this ring, but only one will leave alive. But because the other's a ghost. Like she's already dead. Rachel throws her all around and slams her into the walls and stuff. The staff comes in, thinking that she's trying to commit suicide, but that plan would suck. Don't kill yourself that way. You'll just end up breaking every bone in your body. Come on now. Miranda manages to escape because they didn't sedate her in time, and she manages to get out into the main part of the prison. The staff chase her, but unfortunately for them, she knows the layout of the prison. Another reason why she really shouldn't be here. Like, it's super unethical for her to be in the prison that she worked for so many reasons. She had sleight of handed the nurse's keys and continues to evade them. Apparently, some parts of the prison are in enough disrepair to allow her to escape into the area with the pool. She hides in the pool and holds her breath until Rachel, the asshole ghost, tries to spook her into getting caught. But the guards have shit for perception, though, which is good. And I want to mention this because it could have been a really good excuse to do like a very fan-servicey shot of wet t-shirt Halle Berry, which I would have loved to see, but it would have fucked up the movie's theming something fierce. But the movie actually holds back pretty well. The camera doesn't linger on anywhere for the sake of the male gaze. Well done again, movie. Well done again. Good for you. She manages to sneak up to one of the guard stations, and one of the guards that was her friend before she became an inmate gives her his keys, and she drives home. The place is a wreck. Blood is everywhere, and she remembers. She remembers taking the axe from outside and slashing at him, and eventually very violently murdering him, and using his blood to write "not alone" on the bedroom door. After that, when viewing herself in the mirror, the image bounces back and forth between Rachel and Miranda's face. There's a recurring motif with mirrors in the movie that I haven't really mentioned right now because there's not really an organic place to do it, so I'm doing it right now. Fuck you. It's basically a visual metaphor for how, after trauma, people see a distorted version of themselves and others. It first happens when we meet Douglas, her husband.
Throw it on the mirror. This is what she sees now.
A distorted image of herself.
Who are you in all this?
I'm the mirror.
You are the mirror.
And again in the shower scene, and then right now, and then one other point later in the movie. It's a pretty minor, but great visual metaphor. At least to me. But what the fuck do I know? I'm not a filmographer. Firmly convinced that she was possessed at this point, she is left adrift. Unsure of what to do next, she looks at a photo of her and her husband.
Look at this photograph!
Who, possessed or not, she's still technically killed. And she regrets it. They're standing in front of a farmhouse that Douglas would go away to often and always claimed to be renovating. A drop of blood falls onto the photo, but she checks and she's not bleeding from anywhere. Taking this as a sign, she heads down there and initially finds nothing, but upon inspecting the shed, she finds a trapdoor that leads into a basement with a bloody mattress, sedatives, restraints, and a video camera. Or she watches the playback where Douglas assaults a woman. It's not terribly graphic, thankfully, and Douglas ends the recording saying,
It's good to be God.
which mirrors something that he said at the beginning of the movie.
Then who are you?
So I'm God.
She hears people up above and grabs a weapon, and then goes to defend herself. A policeman finds her and demands that she put down her weapon, but she refuses and demands that he put down his weapon, which is a great thing. It's very fortunate that this is a movie, otherwise Halle Berry would just be like so many others. a cab. There's a bit of a standoff until the woman that Douglas had captured pops out and demands help. Miranda's arrested and kept in Sheriff Ryan's station. Parsons and Graham basically demand that she be let go, but Ryan refuses. Parsons stops off to talk to her and reveals that he had also been haunted by Rachel, but he had been medicating himself in order to stop that, basically.
You see, even after she was gone, I had this recurring dream about her. Eventually, I took medication to block it out.
Kind of dream.
She was burning in flames.
A little bit later, Miranda calls Graham and tries to convince her that while her husband was a rapey monster, he didn't work alone, that he worked with the man with the Anima Sola tattoo, and that the ghost that is haunting her is trying to have her murder solved. Graham dismisses this because, it sounds pretty bonkers, except for the fact that, she's been right up until this point, basically. He reaffirms that he does not believe in ghosts. And she says,
Neither do I. But they believe in me.
Which is kind of corny, but, okay. She's had a hard time. I'll let it pass. She asks if she can talk to Ryan because it's important that she share her new theory with someone, and he meets with her in her cell. She goes over her new theory and what she believes would be his profile. It's the classic movie serial killer profile. Killed and tortured animals when he was young, thinks that he's real smart, etc., etc., etc. Ryan reveals,
Was I, Dio?
the whole time. Wait, this isn't JoJo's. Fuck. It was Ryan. He's the only person with the build that matches the man with the tattoo. Miranda manages to make an acrobatics check to escape, and he fires a gun at her, but misses and hits the gas main. She hides in the small police station, and Rachel helps with distraction. There's another cool distorted reflection effect where Miranda and Rachel are basically fused together. Miranda with Rachel's body and such. Ryan fires on her, shattering the glass, revealing that he can now see Rachel's ghost. He fires another shot, which ignites the gas, but using her cool ghost powers, she directs all of the flame to just consume him, destroying the tattoo and the evidence. But still, that's a cool power, just redirecting fire. Fuck you, Danny Phantom. Take that. Graham comes in at the last moment and apologizes for thinking that the person who was acting pretty objectively crazy was crazy. We cut to sometime later. Miranda and Chloe are out in some city. Chloe has gotten some job and is leaving to live with family somewhere else. And Miranda walks forward and sees a young boy who's about to be hit by a fire truck, but the fire truck passes right through him. The camera pans out to see a missing persons poster with the kid's picture on it. Credits.
You can't trust someone who thinks you're crazy.
So this movie's not subtle in its messaging, but I think that works to the movie's benefit, honestly. You don't have to be subtle when your message is this good, and the rest of the movie also works with really good acting and cinematography. The movie treats psychiatrists, psychologists, and nurses as though they infantilize their patients. They treat them like they're not capable and always talk in really soft, patronizing tones. Dr. Miranda Gray does this to Chloe. The nurses, Dr. Graham, and Dr. Parsons all do this to Miranda.
I am listening, Chloe.
You're not listening with your heart. Just your brain.
They never seem to take the concerns of the patient seriously, even when there is obviously something going on. I mentioned this a couple of times, but when someone insists that they're being assaulted, you check that fucking story out. It doesn't matter if they're saying that the devil is doing it. The devil may not exist, but What does exist is the possibility that this is a coping mechanism and their way of processing the trauma that they're experiencing. But it's more than that. We take a perfect example of someone who is, for all intents and purposes, very sane. Miranda is considered brilliant by her peers, by her lawyer, by her husband, by her fellow doctors, by the nurses. But when they think that she's cracked, they treat it as a great tragedy. She has fallen from grace. Never once does it seem like anyone questions why she might have done this, what had changed. They do a bunch of hand-wringing and pity her, but they also never take her seriously.
I never pegged her for a cutter, that's all.
Neither did I.
She's a mess. I can't believe she's lost it so quickly. I've never seen that before.
When she's first committed, they treat her like she's made of glass. Later, they treat her like she's a threat to herself and others, and that is understandable from their perspective, to some degree. But on the other hand, if they listened to her, maybe not the ghost stuff, but the other stuff, and examined it with her like she's a smart, capable adult, maybe they'd realize that something more was going on here. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive to this kind of stuff because, well, obviously I've been to a couple of therapy sessions, and the quickest way to get me to shut down is to treat me like I'm a child. Especially when I was a child. I couldn't stand it. I'm not stupid, and I hate being treated like that. Chloe and Miranda both reiterate this point. Doctors can't gain the trust of their patients when they treat their patients like they're fucking useless.
You have no idea how it feels not to be trusted.
I'm sorry I didn't believe you.
And there's an in-between here, where you look for through lines of the patient's thoughts and try to navigate what they're feeling and why, without gaslighting them into believing that they're worthless. Or maybe there's not. I'm just a customer service rep. I didn't have what it takes to be a shrink. So, I kind of want to know what happens to Miranda afterwards. Do we become a ghost whisperer and going around psychically solving mysteries around the country? Maybe getting a dog in a green van? That'd be pretty sweet. I'd watch that sequel. Hell, it's a lot better than Ghost Whisperer. Mostly because Miranda isn't remarkably annoying. Sorry, Jennifer Love Hewitt. I'll take Halle any day. With her consent, of course. If you're in the mood for another ghost story, check out my novella down below. Ghostly Bodies. It's a rom-com, because apparently I want to fuck ghosts, and it was compared to Game of Thrones. Well, that's a little disingenuous. The ending was compared to Game of Thrones. Basically saying that I started off super strong, but ended up screwing up the ending. But that's just the only review that I got of the ending. Why don't you read it and tell me what you thought of it? That'd be super cool. In the meantime, is there another movie that you want someone to overanalyze? Throw it down there in the comments and I'll probably get around to it. And while you're there, why not share this video? Print out every frame on 3x5 index cards and create a flipbook. Make sure that the captions are on so that people can still see what I'm saying, though. Then just make a bunch of copies and leave them in the bathrooms all around the country. I'm sure people will appreciate that much more than chick tracts. Also, give this video a like, or a dislike. I haven't gotten a dislike yet. Maybe because only like 5 people watch my videos and they all like me for some reason. I don't know. I'm not sure. You know what I really want to see? A supernatural story with ghosts and demons or whatever, and an atheist character who is firmly an atheist, and not just a cardboard cutout of one. I'm looking at you, Kevin Sorbo, you fucking cunt. And at the end of the movie, it turns out that the atheist was right. The ghosts and the demons were all just shitty wiring and mass hysteria or something. The only media that I know of like that is Scooby-Doo and Psych, and both of those are great. I love them. But they're also kind of lighthearted. I want a movie to take this premise seriously. Not too seriously. You can have jokes in your movie. It's allowed. Zack Snyder. Jokes are allowed. Your movies can be fun. Anyway, this is Sean, your ghost-loving movie critic. Signing off.
I'm recommending a high-security inpatient treatment facility to address these clear obsessions.
Good afternoon, patient. My name is Dr. Williams, and I will be doing your intake interview today. So I am told that you are obsessed with movies from the early 2000s, and it's been affecting your relationship with your friends? I'm not sure that obsession is the right word. I just think that they're... So I would like to ask you a couple of questions. Firstly, are these movies in the room with us right now? Yes? I have the files on my laptop. Files. Huh. And how did you acquire these files? I downloaded them. Legally? Well, you see, I don't really have a way of editing the files down at all without a copy, and my laptop doesn't have a disk drive, so... So your obsession has driven you to theft. I see. Again, I don't feel that obsession is the right... What was the last film that you watched? Gothika. It's actually really good. It has Halle Berry and Robert Downey Jr., and it's a lot of fun. I recommend that we commit this patient for an extended stay, and possibly he will need a lobotomy in order to get these delusions out of his head.
No bangs, no bangs.
Oh god, it just reminds me of that terrible fucking song that they inserted into Jessica Jones. There was a one of the stars of the show is a fake pop star, and me cray. I'm just like, that's...
Oh no, just stop right there. It's the worst already. Anytime.
Action.
I don't know why that made me laugh. You've done it before. I don't know why. Anyway, I recommend getting high.
420 blaze.
Here's some drugs. I'm a good doctor.